Is the bottom finally in locally here for Bitcoin as the S&P is continually breaking into fresh all-time highs and gold has officially broken out as well? We've just closed another chapter and opened a new one with the brand new month on the books. As we step into the final stretch here of Q3, the markets are at critical crossroads and the decisions made here could shape the rest of the year. So buckle up, folks, because in today's episode, we're cutting through all the noise, breaking down exactly what these moves mean for Bitcoin, crypto, and beyond. And of course, grab yourself a cup of coffee this morning, whether it's hot or ice, because I'm diving into it all right now. So folks, first up, I want to take a look at Bitcoin here as we've come into this key level that we've been looking at for the past few weeks here, right? As Bitcoin has come down into our anchored VWAP, which is a volume weighted average of price that's derived from the low that we put in right here at the tariff war, basically the tariff war fears, right? The $74,000 low way back in April. And you can see how this level has been regarded as major support along the way so far, right? This is when we came down in June, got a nice bounce right off here before pushing up to new highs. We have yet again come back down to this region sitting at about $107,000 Bitcoin. Now, again, we put in a bearish harmonic setup at the highs, which we've done literally every single step of the way, this entire Bitcoin bull run dating back to 2022. It's been absolutely incredible. However, I've pointed out this in the sense of this is not something where, yes, the target area is down here. However, it's not necessarily end all be all that this is where we have to see a reversal come from, right? So technically, this is a major reversal, meaning to the downside, where if you are going to basically take advantage of this setup, it's one of two things. You either enter a short up here, right? Stop loss above the high, and you have three major targets, all right? Otherwise, if you're looking for a DCA, fresh entry area, when we're trading into $123,000 Bitcoin all-time highs, obviously that's not the ideal area to look for. More so, we were looking for a pullback into this region. All right. And then at this point, you have to evaluate the market as it is at that level, right? So you can't just overly be like, all right, this is going to be the high. We're going to come into this region right here. That's the target of the setup. And then you just get an automatic reversal. When we come down in these regions, we have to look for a new setup, a new trigger, right? So that's what really drove me to really liking this 107 area, because it was a stack of a bunch of things, right? And then not only is it a stack up of all these levels here, but now we also have a few local setups here that I do look for each and every week, right? When we're looking for that more small, lower time frame entry triggers, essentially that can grow into these larger moves. So not only did we come down to the major key level at 107, which is really the moving average. It's not necessarily exactly right at 107,000. It's that anchored VWAP. We touched it on the daily time frame, right? You can see this very clearly right here. Got a really nice reaction right off of it. Where did we run to? Right to our weekly pivot. All right. So each and every week we look for these pivots. This is the average of last week, likely to be met this week. And you can see that we essentially got there in a hurry, right? We see that almost time and time again. Okay. So now what am I looking for? So not only did we come down to this region, obviously on a lower time frame, you could say we front ran this a little bit, but on the daily time frame, hit the VWAP. If I'm looking at our new previous week range, okay, so I look at last week's range, right, because it's very vital for this week, gives us a really nice region to work off of, as well as identifying the highs and the lows, right? Because anyone last week that had gotten into long positions, all right, where did they put in their stop loss? Right below the low. You come down, you take out that low, and then you go. Okay. So far, we've really materialized into nothing at the moment and trading at this exact second. We're just relaxing basically right below the range. In the sense of what we'd like to see next, we want to flip our weekly pivot. All right. Because that's also our range low right here. So it's going to break us into the range, our value area essentially. What do we have up here? We have our weekly naked point of control, our untapped point of control. So price action will be attracted like a magnet right up to that region as soon as we get into this range. And then at that point, we look for a range rotation, okay, which we seek out over the week. It's not necessarily something that happens right away. Sometimes it does. But overall, this is something I'm looking for over the course of this week. All right. So we've taken out the low. We've pushed back up to our weekly pivot. So we have one more weekly target on the docket here. So it's just going to be a question of how we get there, of course. And overall, looking for that in the shorter term here, okay? Now I'm gonna take a look at our August range as well, because now we have a brand new range for the month of August. Now that August is closed off, it's gonna be very relevant for the month of September. And you can start to see how these lower time frames start building out into the larger ones, and where something that happened today where we just took that low, and as long as that low holds, we could see that next move up to 111, which is that new weekly target for this week. And then if we rotate that range up to 113, what is the next, the stair step of what is going to grow into? So not only did we take out on a local basis our previous week low, so again, everybody that got into long positions last week, you got to remember this in this market, even for myself, right? I'm patiently waiting for this level. And even as we come down to it over the weekend, I'm waiting. But if somebody's not as patient as I am, what are they doing? They're getting in when we get this bounce here, because they're thinking, oh, okay, we might, if anybody's even targeting this region aside from me, but you're going to get in on every single bounce, right? And you're going to get stopped out again. But anyone that's gotten into long positions in that last week got stopped out. Now this is taking a look at August. So looking again, the entire month of August, we came down. This was our low, of course, as we just put it in towards the end there. But you also just took that out as well. So these sweeps, liquidity grabs, again, I call it the take the low and go. They're very powerful, right? So this really does set it. That's what you want to see. That's what, for me, is, I took a long position right here, basically overnight. Aside from seeing this piece here, just waiting for this region, I actually decided to front run the exact lower time frame version because of this exact scenario. But anyhow, I took this with that setup because now we have that entry trigger, right? So as long as this low is essentially holding, there's no reason not to assume we're not going to push up to at least our weekly level here. Again, this starts to grow out into a bigger picture here. This is a month range. So basically, I'm looking to run this range in the month of September, okay? We have a new monthly average. So just like we run it up to these weekly pivots, this is last week's average, this week's target. This is last month's average, this month's target. So at some point in the month of September, it's likely that we come back to 113. And on the way into there, if we flip this 111, that gets us back into the range. And you can start to see how this all builds a case together, right? So we're kind of stair stepping into this, preparing at this level here, looking for the confirmations up in this region for continuation, okay? And then for me, I'm looking to get into this region at that point. We run it to our monthly pivot. That's our next key level to flip. Of course, we have a monthly NPOC now. So another high volume target to be aware of at 115. Look to rotate the range. All right. And at this point, I will look for a sizable move back to an all-time high on Bitcoin. Overall, biggest picture here. While this setup, or this overall idea here, this is something that is what's known as the AB equals CD. This is another harmonic setup, very, very bearish setup, I must point out, right? So this is actually from the carry trade low, August of last year, basically, till now. And realistically, we could argue that it's valid at this point. Now it can extend up into this region here. That's why I have this box grayed out. I had a time frame of about September time. I'm not overly married to those in the sense of where it's like I have to, I'm not glued to this time frame and glued to these targets to the point where I'm not going to make any adjustments unless we hit that, because that's how you end up holding a bag when the market does see a pretty big downfall, right? So very aware that we're in a window of time and target area where I've been targeting 130 in September. We hit 125 in August, right? Now, so that's a very, very close measure in the sense of greater good here, right? This is a weekly chart I'm looking at. So to be off by 4 bars, essentially, if that was our high, is something that we have to be aware of. At the moment, my bias still does lean that we're going to see a move back to the upside here, at least back to the 125 region, 126. Okay. And I have other reasoning behind that if you're in the Traders Club Discord, I have the updates in there, obviously, each and every day. And we'll talk about them as they progress here. But as long as we hold above this 107 area, which is, again, that anchored VWAP from that low, which is just similar to a 200-day moving average, essentially, but this is based off the volume of price. I see no reason at the moment why we shouldn't head back up, okay? So is that going to be a new all-time high? That's still the question, but pushing back up to 111, 115, 118 again, I think is something that we see in the month of September here. And I just do want to reiterate that if we're going to see the next Bitcoin correction sizably, right? So 30-40%, similar to what we saw in January, it is most likely going to come from either where we already hit here, And if we see this region in September, this is where I'm really going to be looking for a sizable pullback again at those areas, right? So you're talking again, 30-40% potential correction here, little 5 to 10 month cool down. Not going to be amazing for the market overall in the short term, but that's just basically what we're up against here. So continues to be my overlooking idea here, is that we see that little jaunt up. Again, am I stating this is the most amazing place to enter new positions? By no means, right? So this is something that if you're already invested in the market and you're looking for some opportunity, you got to be almost a little aggressive here, because if we do see a little push up in the next few weeks, which honestly, like I said, I do see that more likely at the moment. Just be aware that if we come into this region, it's going to be very similar to January right here. And we got a huge pullback in the altcoins when Bitcoin got this pullback. So just keep that on mind, right? And of course, I'll be updating every step of the way, either here or in the Traders Club Discord. Again, you can join that at our website, datadashpro.com. And folks, if you're looking for a new exchange to come trade these moves with me, our official exchange channel partner, BloFin, has a brand new campaign that we're just started today. So I'm excited to share our latest DataDash BloFin promotion here. And this one's for those who are ready to come trade alongside me over at BloFin, right? So you get a $30 futures bonus when you sign up and deposit $50 or more. And you also can enjoy 50% discount on spot fees for 30 days. So you get half off of the just buy and hold fees, which honestly, I suggest more than anything versus futures. The offer is exclusive to new users and limited to the first 200 signups. So don't miss out if you're interested in looking for a new exchange there. So come trade with me over at BloFin. Take advantage of these perks today. Terms and conditions do apply, so please be sure to read through them carefully before getting started. Link is down in the description if you're interested to join. So always a good shout out to HODL15 Capital over on X, always providing such great ETF updates on Bitcoin and Ethereum and other products as well. And again, we have a new month now to be considered here, and this whole entire tracking sheet here goes by quarters since basically the beginning of the ETF launching back in 2024, and then we are in a current quarter that has not ended yet, so we've basically just been going off of a month over month. So at the end of Q2, we had we were sitting at about 1.25 million Bitcoin over here as far as the ETFs would go, and then at the end of July, we saw a pretty sizable increase up to almost 1.3, and ending August about the same. So as far as buys and sells would go, we pretty much netted pretty even at the end there. So really nothing overly crazy to write home about, considering the amount of Bitcoin that has been basically just exchanging hands here at the moment. So pretty break even move here in that sense. We'll be interested to see how the end of this month plays out if we actually end this quarter with any type of sizable increase or a first decrease that we've seen basically over the entirety. All right, folks, fear and greed officially in fear for crypto, right? So personally, another thing that I look to in the sense of building a trading plan, a strategy, big key regions to be aware of on the chart. By no means is there a guarantee in anything in investing and trading. But when we come into a big level, such as that 107 that I've been pointing out now for a few weeks, and we are hit at a fear point as far as sentiment goes, where again, it's one of those times, just like with the tariff lows and the carry trade low, the FTX low, but by no means are we in extreme fear situation like that. But we are ticking over into these, more fearful areas where it's just one of those times in general where as long as we're holding that 107, in my opinion, it's just, you can start to look to be a little greedy when some are fearful. All right. Now, technically, one thing I do always kind of bring up is that really between this like 40 to 60 window is relatively neutral. So, but either way, as we're seeing this kind of tick into the fear portion, as we've hit a key level, again, no guarantee by any means, but this is where of all the last few days, weeks where I'm looking to put on any kind of new risk, it's definitely here. At least going to be taking that chance. If it gets stopped out or if we start to, drop lower, I'll have to make adjustments to that as I see fit for my own personal risk tolerance. And you should do the same for yourself, of course. Hitting into key levels, fear is here. Just another piece that I look to when I'm looking to, like I said, enter new positions, which I did do with Bitcoin. Now the SPX, which is again the S&P 500, continues to slowly grind higher, right? So we've gotten a similar low back at the tariff fears back here in April, and since then it's just been slow new all-time highs ever since. Now this is a major market cap, so obviously we don't anticipate it to just have extreme moves every single day, just because it takes more to move this market. But nothing has really changed for me in the overall outlook here. And really, as long as we're holding above that 2024 high, I mean, I just can continue to seek out higher price here. So it's really the little line in the sand as far as the the midpoint would go here. If we start to come all the way down and start losing that, then I would imagine that some of these levels get filled out, right? Potentially down to that 5,700. But aside from that, high time frame outlook here, still relatively bullish on the S&P, and over time I'm targeting up to that $7,500 to $7,700 area. Just wanted to touch on silver and gold. I know I mentioned gold in the beginning, but silver as well. I mean, just haven't moved this since we last looked at it. We were trading around this region or potentially here, and I was looking for a pullback into this little box region and then basically a break to new all-time highs. Next target is coming in at $44 up here for silver, currently putting in a new high, at least locally here as we speak. And gold, coiled up like a snake in the grass, about to strike, right? So we've been seeing this for quite some time. This has been basically since April time back here. So we've just been kind of coiling up in this more so a bullish pennant. And among other things, this was just an easy way to look at this. And so far it's been playing out. Looking at a breakout currently, of course, we need to take out the high here without sweeping it and coming back down, of course, because that would be a bearish outlook short term. But overall, still targeting up to this 36.61 with gold in the coming weeks. All right, folks, that's going to wrap it up for today. If you've been finding these updates helpful and you want more of this on a daily basis, I share all my charts, insights, and trade setups inside the Traders Club. It's where I post every single day, and it's really the best way to stay connected with me, with what I'm looking at in the markets as well. So you can hop in anytime over at datadashpro.com. Would love to have you in there. Again, thank you all so much as always for tuning in. My name is Paul Sampson. This is DataDash, and I'll catch you all in the next video. And until then, everybody, cheers.